Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Michael Breus, the Sleep Doctor. Welcome to another episode of Wake Up Wednesday. I'm on a mission to help people get the best sleep they can, and I love hearing from you. Every single week, I answer a few of your sleep-related questions, and boy, there are a ton. If you have a question that you'd like to see me answer, head on over to thesleepdoctor.com where you can send me an email. And do me a favor, while you're there, scroll down to the bottom of the website where you can subscribe to our weekly email that's packed with all of my best sleep tips. All right, let's get to it. Question number 1. Judy asks, what kind of matcha tea do you recommend to help you sleep? And Mike asks, I've been using matcha tea for the last 6 years, but I recently decided to go off all forms of caffeine, including matcha, and I've experienced sleep disruption, anxiety, and depression. Is it possible that I've developed a dependence on matcha tea? Well, to be fair, I don't think you developed a dependence on matcha tea, but maybe you developed a dependence on caffeine. Now, the good news here is that matcha tea is a great step in terms of lowering your total caffeine, but when you completely eliminate matcha, you definitely will have caffeine withdrawal symptomatology. Now, this is not uncommon. However, it can last quite a while. So what I'm oftentimes telling people to do is, number 1, slowly make your matcha a little bit more diluted. So add a little bit more water, maybe a little less matcha. It's going to taste a little on the watery side, but slowly getting you there. And then eventually coming off of it altogether. So what I would recommend here is that you want to taper your matcha tea. Another thing that you can possibly do that could be helpful here is to use a substitute called L-theanine. L-theanine is what we find in green tea, which can also be alerting, but not so alerting that it disrupts your sleep. Next up is a question from Queenie. She writes, what are the best snacks to eat to go to sleep quicker? Well, first of all, Queenie, couple things to think about is we don't really like people to eat within 2 hours of bedtime, but I get it. Sometimes you're running late or you had dinner early and you don't want to go to bed hungry. Let's be clear. We don't want anybody going to bed hungry because it's hard to fall asleep. So as a general guideline, here's what I recommend. About a 250 calorie snack, about 75% carbohydrates, and about 25% protein or fat. So what's a good example of that? Maybe an apple with some nut butter or a rice cake with some avocado, something along those lines. We do like to have a little bit more carbohydrates because carbs have a tendency to make us fall asleep a bit more quickly. Obviously, you want to avoid anything with caffeine or anything with a high content of sugar. So question number 3 is from Eric, and he says, my housemates and I are trying out the recommended daily routine based on your chronotype. The biggest struggle we are having is with breakfast suggestions. For bear types, it's recommended that breakfast be the biggest meal, but be low carb and high protein. We are vegetarian. We eat eggs and dairy, but no other meats. What can we do in the morning so that the meal is big enough, but low carb, or is a giant plate of cheesy eggs my only option? Well, number 1, I kind of like cheesy eggs, but having the same thing every single morning is probably not ideal. A couple of different things that you can do. Number 1 is consider adding vegetables in with your eggs and have an overall scramble, maybe even leaving out the cheese. But the other thing that I like to do in the morning times is I actually like to make a protein smoothie. So for me, I use egg white protein, so that way I still get my animal protein in. I add in a greens powder, some almonds, some Brazil nuts, a little almond butter, and something called Ripple, which is a plant-based sort of dairy type of thing. Mix it all together with some ice cubes so that it feels kind of frosty. And then I've got a great smoothie for my morning time. Do yourself a favor, try not to put too much fruit in your smoothies, but keep it higher on the protein side. Finally, we've got Wayne, who simply writes, I need your banana tea recipe, please. No problem, Wayne. This is one of the easiest ones out there. So a lot of people are deficient in magnesium, and we know that bananas are loaded with magnesium. In fact, we kind of call them nature's sleeping pills. But it turns out there's 3 times the amount of magnesium in the peel rather than in the fruit itself. So here's the recipe. Go out and get an organic banana, wash it off, cut off the stem and the tip, and cut it in half. Leave the peel on and the fruit in it. Take these 2 halves and drop them into about 4 cups of boiling water for about 4 minutes or until it turns brown. Once it's done that, then bring the water out and you can drink the water. It's loaded with phytosteroids, magnesium. It's great. It tastes very banana-y, as my daughter likes to say. So you better like bananas for sure. But at the end of the day, this is something that you can make at the beginning of the week. I got one mom, she puts it into popsicle molds and gives it to her kids at night. Whole host of different ways to get your magnesium, and it's a great ritual before bed. Thanks so much for all of your questions. Remember, if you have a question that you'd like to see answered, send me an email at ask@thesleepdoctor.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter as well as my YouTube channel, where I'll be giving you the most current and relevant answers to your burning sleep questions. This is Dr. Michael Breus, the Sleep Doctor, wishing you sweet dreams.